Okay, YouTubers, this is the Angryprepper. Today's video, we're going to talk about what caused the cell phone outage. So guys, of course, probably three days later now, or 2 days later, rather, sorry, we're going to talk about the cell phone outage, which at first I didn't think it was a big to-do, and I still don't, but there were some people that brought up some good points as to what to do if this happens again. Now, we're going to get into that in a little bit, but we're going to talk about what caused the power outage and what I thought was ridiculous excuse that they went on to say that a solar flare was the possible cause of this power outage, cell phone outage, sorry. And thinking to myself, I'm like, well, if that was the case, a lot more phones would have been compromised, and everybody on that, every cell phone would have been infected in some way or another. But somehow it was only AT&T and not Verizon, though I think Verizon and T-Mobile were also affected. They tried to use the excuse that, oh, it was people trying to contact AT&T customers is why their phones were affected as well. It sounded like some really far out BS excuse. Still, to blame a solar flare for this made no sense, because though I'm not a smart man, that's why I'm a firefighter and I like to break shit and lift things up and put them down, solar flares would have compromised almost all cell phone services, and not selected few within that service. So AT&T only had up to 71,000 customers that were compromised. And not every customer in AT&T was compromised. So, for example, when I was working, my phone went to SOS mode. My buddy who was working with me as well, one of the guys I was working with, his phone didn't go out of service. His phone didn't go out of service at all that day. Some people's phone went out of service at 3 a.m. and then recovered around 7, and others went out around 11 o'clock and recovered at 12. With that being said, guys, the solar flare is not the excuse they should have went with. It was a knee-jerk reaction. And plus, listen, AT&T, all the cell phone services, and all of the people that spy on our phone calls, they know exactly what caused this. They know who caused this. But they're going to play the game like we're stupid as to they don't know what caused this. Fair enough, fine. Play stupid, but don't treat us like we're stupid. And the U.S. government is used to doing that because a lot of us were stupid. Now, there happened to be 2 solar flares that I guess they were focused on that caused some minor communication disruptions around the world, but not cell phone. There were actually a total of 3 that went off, that was exploded, if you will, and came towards Earth. Nonetheless, neither of those were the cause of the cell phone service outage. So again, what caused it? We all know it was a cyber attack. Though they are not confirming it was a cyber attack, they are actually playing the investigation card. They know what it was. They know who it came from. And I think it was the Chinese. Some people are saying it's the Russians. Either way, it was an adversary of ours that sat there and was playing games. Now, interestingly enough, the day before our outage, Change Healthcare System also had a cyber attack. They are a pharmaceutical, not a pharmaceutical, but they're like a payment company and a prescription company for medications. And they had a cyber attack. So with that, guys, it all but screamed cyber attack. And now the next day, cell phones go out. And though they just went out, I feel like it was a test run by those who were playing with our system. Listen, some people will even go on a limb and say it was the United States government that was testing the system, testing the waters to see how many phones they could affect. Now, 71,000 phones, when you think about it, it's not a lot of phones. Some people are like, oh my God, that's a lot of phones. It really isn't. It was like a drop in a bucket kind of deal. But had they affected millions of phones, now we're talking. Now, they also affected internet usage as well. So it wasn't just mobile phones, it was also internet. And a lot of people weren't talking about that. Not for the obvious reasons. I mean, people were more focused on the mobile phones than they were internet. But keep in mind, guys, this was communications knocked out. That was the problem. And that's where the bigger problem becomes, because if communications knocked out, mobile phones and internet, you have no way of communicating unless you have a ham radio. And not a lot of us have ham radios. I don't have a ham radio, and I keep saying I'm going to get one. I just don't know what setup to go with, and nor am I trained in using one. But after this, now I'm going to get trained in using one, and I'm going to get me a ham radio after I get my training and certifications and all that other stuff. So I could, talk to people I don't want to talk to just to get used to doing this. But that is the lesson out of all of this, guys. Now we have to come up with another form of communication. Now, landlines are the best way to go. Landlines were not affected by this. And everybody should put a landline in their home as an emergency backup, so that if this happens again, at least people can call the landline. So if your kids are at a friend's house, hopefully they have a landline, you have a landline, you guys communicate in that way until your kids get the fuck home. When the internet and mobile is out, there's no communication. So it's only landline and possible ham radio. And now after this, I'm advising people, including myself, we should all start taking ham radio operators course, because it's going to be needed if we're going to have to be dealing with this shit again. And this is not going to be the last time. This is not going to be the last time we deal with this. So that's another way to get ready. Another way to get ready, guys, is have an emergency plan. Make sure everybody's on board with that emergency plan. If you get a landline established, or you already have one established, make sure everybody knows that phone number by heart. Not looking into their cell phone in case their cell phone battery dies or anything weird like that, but make sure they have it in their heads and not in their phones, so they can rattle off that phone number. They can rattle off that phone number without having to look in their phone, I guess, in case their phone dies. And just have a meeting spot too, in case you can't get in contact with anybody. If phone lines are down, communication is down for longer than, let's say, 2-3 hours, have a meeting location where everybody can go, which would be presumably home. Home should be the first one. And if people can't get home, or you guys are in a certain location, or you're on a vacation somewhere, have a meeting point in that vacation spot. Have a meeting point if you're at grandma's house. Make sure that there's a meeting spot everybody can go to. In a case like that, not the park, not some movie theater, not a parking lot, go back home if you can. If you can't go back home, then yes, it'll have to be a parking lot or something like that if you guys are out of communication too long. So guys, this is not going to be the last time. We are undoubtedly going to see this again. We might see this on a bigger scale. And the bigger the scale, guys, the scarier this is going to be for a lot of people, even preppers. Because there's one thing to be prepared for disasters and things of that nature, is an entirely different ballgame to be left in the dark with no communication. Anyway, guys, this is the Angry Prepper. Thank you for watching.